All right, hey class, this is our week 3 live meeting. I got Kristen and Christy here with me. Nobody sent in any questions, so I'm going to ask them if they have any questions that they want me to answer before I've got an agenda of a couple of things I want to go over with you, and we'll move right along. So, Kristen, do you have any specific questions or things you need clarified?
So, not for week 3 specifically, but I started looking at the state thing, and I guess I'm confused on, really where to start on that.
Okay. So, the first thing, let me get to, and I'm going to share my screen so y'all can see the law screen here. Can everybody see my screen? Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the state law report, that's going to be the big assignment for this class. Kind of the idea is everything in this class we're learning what the federal law says regarding students with disabilities, mainly through IDEA, ADA, and those laws. But state law, which the Constitution really leaves the state, the state's supposed to be able to control their own education. As time has progressed, federal law has been implemented more and more and more, hence No Child Left Behind, ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. Those are all federal laws that the states have to go by. A lot of states have other laws on top of that. But most states have other laws that are umbrellaed under federal. So if you think of federal law as like this big umbrella, then the state law is under it. So states have to do what federal law says plus what state law. State law can never go against federal law. They can add to it. So a good example is transition. Federal law says that you have to do a transition plan by the age of 16. Well, every state has most states have a different age of when they start transition. For example, Tennessee, that's where I taught. Tennessee, we had to have a transition plan in place by the age of 14. So they went above and beyond what the federal law said. So we're still meeting federal law because by the age of 16, did this child have a transition plan in place? Yes. But Tennessee said they had to have it by 14. So Indiana special ed law is called Article 7. That is the actual law. And I've included that entire document for you to look at. Listen, you won't have time to read through it, but it is on the licensure test. There are specific questions that are asked about Article 7. So make sure that you look through it. Make sure you know the most important things, especially the things I'm talking about in this, that I'm going to have you do this presentation over. Those are the things that you may see on the licensure test that it's going to ask you, specifically about Indiana. So if you look at Article 7, I've got a couple of things here to help you just kind of navigate and help you read through. But this is the Article 7 actual law, Title 511, Article 7, Rules 32 through 49. And it gives you different, so let's look at transition, for instance. So here's procedural safeguards, identification, evaluation, eligibility. Those are all the different eligibility categories. Sometimes states have more than what the federal. The federal have the 13. Sometimes states have 14. Sometimes developmentally delayed, which Indiana happens to have too, but that's not federal. That's only state. Let's see here. Least restrictive environment, a lot of these things, transportation related services, discipline. Well, I may not be able to find, where's the IEP? I tell you what, let's look at discipline. 107. I'm way off here. Okay, so 107 talks about the removal. And it has different things, so removals of more than 10 days or 10 cumulative days that result in a change of placement. There are specific laws for federal. This is what the state requires. They can never go against what the federal law says, but they can make you do even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if state law says you have to do something within federal law says you have to do something within 30 days. State law may say you got to do it in 15 days. So did you do it in 30 days? Yeah, you did it in 15. So you could never be, federal law says 30, but state says 45. You see what I'm saying? That goes against what state law says. But to answer your question more specifically, where do I get started at? Look at, I have this document, Investigating Education Law in Your State. These are the things that you need to answer. So how does your state, what's the state special education law? Well, I just told you that. For Indiana, it's called Article 7.
Right.
How does your state define free appropriate public education? Give me a little more, information about FAPE. What are the state's requirements regarding an IEP? You may have certain people that are required. How many days does it, tell me all about what the state requires for an IEP. What are the guidelines for disciplining students with disabilities? That was sort of in there, but you may find more in there about procedures in which have to be followed. Policies for including students with disabilities on statewide assessments. All of these are things that you may see on the licensure test, but more specifically, hang on. Here's some guiding questions. So like if you think about answering these, what is special education? What is the Individuals with Disability Education Act? Does that make sense? Am I answering you at all?
Yeah. So I guess how does this document play into the other one?
What other one? These are just guiding questions.
Okay.
The other one's just a topic. So these are just some questions, I actually wrote them in a question format.
Okay.
Instead of saying, how does your state define a student with a disability? I don't care. You can go through and answer each one of these questions, or you can go through and talk broadly about the other.
Okay.
I just tried to be more specific with actual questions. Some people need guidance, as in, I need you, something I can answer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I need question and answer kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's really kind of up to you. This is probably more specific and will help you instead of the other will be general. You'll have to kind of figure some of the things out yourself if you get these questions. But, so for instance, number 16, are the state's procedural safeguard time limits different than the federal time limits? If so, how? So it's a little more specific than saying, talk about procedural safeguards for the state.
Okay.
My suggestion would be is make sure you've answered these questions.
Okay.
If you answer these questions, and all these questions fall into those topics, that you should be fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The main thing is I just want you to get familiar looking with Article 7. That way, if you see any questions on the licensure exam, you're like, well, what's Article 7? We never talked about Article 7.
Okay.
You understand and know what Article 7 is.
Sounds good.
And you just do a PowerPoint and then a voice through just like you did your introductions.
Okay.
Any other questions about that? Does that help at all?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. Christy, question.
My question is regarding the graduate report.
Yes.
Can you kind of walk through that? Is
Yes.
there specific links?
No, there's not a link. I just want you, so this will be a presentation.
Right, so then we can do the report based on those answers.
Do what?
Do the report based on those answers of the questions for the presentation.
Yours will I would make your presentation more over this.
Okay.
And maybe more specifically talk about in just high-arching categories in your report.
Okay.
3 or 4 pages will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just put it in a written format.
Okay.
But yeah, and then just submit it to that link.
Okay.
Then you'll use the PowerPoint, which you won't have a TK20, Christy, but
right.
Everybody else that's undergrad does, and they'll just submit the PowerPoint.
Right.
Any other questions?
For the PowerPoint to submit it, will VoiceThread give us a way to
It'll be just like your introduction.
Okay.
Did you do a PowerPoint or in 408? I don't know if you took 408.
Yeah.
You uploaded the PowerPoint and you did a voiceover comments on each link.
Yeah.
That's the way you did. And I think I even have I did. Here is a thing on creating the VoiceThread, which you can do your PowerPoint, then upload your PowerPoint, and then comment on each slide. Use your voice, or you can do a video with it.
Okay.
And there's still a little screenshot of your video. So however you want to do, I'll let you do either. But it's got to be voice or video.
But to submit that to TK20, does it give you a link or something?
Submitting the PowerPoint to TK20. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to submit the voice part. You just submit the PowerPoint to TK20.
Okay.
And hopefully she'll get that out. I don't send out the TK20 notice of when to submit that or when that's open. But Jean Moore does, so we'll just be waiting for an email for her. And last summer too, it came 3 or 4 days before the end of the term, so it was right there at the very end.
Okay.
But as soon as I hear something, I'll let you know. But it should come to your USI email. Any other questions? Okay. Well, real briefly, I want to go over real quick. I want to talk about the answers to the discussion questions from last week. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5's discussion questions. So really quick. That's not what I want to do. Hang on.
Become eligible.
Okay. So how does a student become eligible to receive special education and related services under IDA? This one, the short answer is they have to first have a disability that's covered under IDEA, and second, that disability has to adversely affect their educational performance. So just because a student has a language impairment and doesn't necessarily mean they're automatically going to qualify for special ed or related services. They have to have a specific disability in a disability category, and that disability has to adversely affect their educational performance. So that's really that answer in a nutshell. And then, is a student who has one of the disabling conditions listed in the IDA, such as autism, deafblindness, or deafness, always eligible for special education and related services? Why not? And this kind of piggybacks off what I just said. No, just because they have one of those disabling conditions does not mean they're always eligible. That disability has to adversely affect their educational performance. Sometimes students who have a physical impairment can be physically disabled. They may be in a wheelchair, but does that mean that they need special ed services? No, not necessarily. Especially if it doesn't adversely affect their educational performance. Sometimes they're still covered under ADA. They may receive 504, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be covered under IDEA. Just like, and this is in, I think, Chapter 5, a student with ADHD, which some of you know, some of you don't. My son has ADHD. So for him, that is not a disability category, but a lot of times it falls under other health impairments. But it has to adversely affect their educational performance. My son has ADHD, but he is high ability. So he is not covered under IDEA. He does not have a disabling condition. And he could receive 504 services, but I just choose not to because it doesn't adversely affect his education performance, or at least it doesn't at this time. We're managing it, so not necessarily. So it just depends on the child, but the key piece to that is it has to adversely affect their education performance. Even if they have the disability, you may have someone who is deaf, but if it doesn't adversely affect their education performance, they may not need services. So that kind of hits that one. Let me see here. How can I get out of here? I bet if I go here, I can show you these better. And then chapter 5. Here we go. All right, so chapter 5. The first question is, the LEA determines in a case conference that a child is ineligible for special ed, but is eligible for 504 services. The parent refuses to accept that decision, indicating that if the child is eligible for 504 services, he must also be eligible for IDEA. Who is legally correct and why? Well, in this one, the public school is legally correct. Just because a child is eligible for 504 doesn't make them eligible for IDEA. Again, it's kind of that what I just talked about a minute ago. They have to have a disabling condition, and it has to adversely affect their child's education. Now, on the other hand, if a child is deemed eligible for IDEA, they are automatically eligible for 504. So IDEA is the big umbrella, 504 comes under it. So just because you're 504 doesn't mean you're IDEA. Does that make sense at all?
Yep.
Okay. 504 is just kind of like, okay, so a lot of times kids who can't get qualified for IDEA can fall under 504. And a 10-year-old with ADHD is evaluated but determined ineligible for special education services. The case conference committee recommends a 504 service but does not find the student eligible under IDEA. The parent argues that because of his son's ADHD, his son's grades are suffering, and that ADHD is a disability itself and should receive special education services. Who is legally correct and why? This one is the public school again. First off, ADHD is not a disability itself. It is it's a medical condition. If you have it, and it is under IDEA, it falls under other health impairment. So automatically, that's a no on that. But like I said, he can be found that he needs 504 services, which a lot of times will give you testing, accommodations, and modifications. You know, he may need to be in a room by himself, need to receive extra time. It's really about the distraction piece. So that hits chapter 5, and I think that's it for this week. And hopefully everybody got the email that I had the dates incorrect. I thought we ended the 18th, we end the 11th, but I'm giving you through the 13th because I won't have to have grades turned until the 14th. So I just moved those up a day. I have all the videos are posted, so everything's good to go. So you can just, if you can get finished, just get finished, but make sure you keep your emails checked because you will be receiving an email from G Moore about TK20. And you'll upload your PowerPoint for your state law to TK20. Any other questions or anything?
I don't have any.
Okay. Well, I didn't get any through email, so we will meet again next week, probably close to the same time or day. I may wait till a little later in the week. That way, if anybody has any other questions as they work on that state law, I can answer it for you.
Okay.
But in the meantime, send me any questions you have or concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.